guys, happy Monday. I have a question today from Tanya. It's a two-part question, so I think I might break this one up. So she writes, I've had OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, for 23 years. My question is, thoughts are created from mind, but how do you deal with the thought when it becomes a compulsion? So there's another part, but let me speak to this one for a minute. So she has some familiarity with some of what I share here. So when she says thoughts are created from mind, she's speaking to the fact she's not talking, I don't think, I'll say this on her behalf, I'm pretty sure. She's not talking about little mind, little thoughts, let's say, compulsive thoughts, obsessive thoughts. They come through our little mind. They come through our brain as human beings in the physical part of life. Thoughts aren't coming from your stomach, right? They're coming from through your brain. But when she says thoughts are created from mind, really what I think she's kind of pointing to is something she's seen in here, where mind is like a bigger energy that brings our experience to life. So all experience, and I don't find it that helpful to separate out, there's thoughts, there's feelings, there's behaviors. Now I talk that way because people talk that way. That's just the way we think about it and talk about it in society. But thought, feeling, behavior, it's all the same thing. It's an expression of life happening through a human being, right? It's all experience. Let's just bucket it together for the sake of our conversation here. So it is all created in the same way, from the same source. It all is the same source. It is all one thing. Thought, feeling, behavior, experience, it's all one thing. And it all has that same shared essence, and it's that alone is a huge thing to see. So she's talking about having obsessive compulsive disorder. So these thoughts, little t thoughts, right? You should do this, you should do that. This is happening, that's happening. The whole conversation piece of it is a lot. It's habitual. It's steady. It feels real. It kind of drives her nuts at times, I'm sure. Obsessive compulsive, she's talking about compulsion. So she gets caught up as we would, right? And these little thoughts. She takes them seriously, as we do as human beings. She feels a compulsion to act on them at times, which is a behavior, but it's all the same thing. So I just think it's so helpful for us to start to see this. It's all one thing. Because as soon as we start complicating things by, this thought and this feeling, and then I did this and then I did that, we're so in the weeds of things, and we're in our head, and our concepts, and our little ego mind is making these distinctions and making things up and calling them this and calling them that. And human to human, yeah, that's how it goes oftentimes. But in a bigger sense, that is getting us further away from a deeper truth that can be helpful. So if we aren't talking about this thought, that thought, this feeling, this behavior, and we're just seeing, wow, experience happens through me. It is all the same, essentially. Now, when it comes to life, it looks different. So you might have your compulsions. You might have your habitual thoughts. You might have your nice thoughts, the thoughts you like, the ones you don't like. Wonderful. But they're really all the same thing, taking different shapes. So the ocean has lots of waves. Some are big, some are little. They're all ocean. And this is a metaphor, but it's accurate. This is true of human beings, and we miss this. It's all ocean, and we can look at some waves and other waves and like these and don't like those and all of that kind of stuff, but that's just more thinking about ocean. It's all the same. So the first part of Tanya's question is, I know thoughts are created from mind, but how do you deal with the thought when it becomes a compulsion? Well, again, if thought and compulsion are the same thing, thought and behavior are the same thing, it's all experience, and it's all ocean. It is all the same, but for our little mind coming in and again judging it and making it serious and taking it personally and trying to fix it and do things, if we can just sit back and let thought, feeling, behavior, life just move through us like waves move through the ocean, and know it's all the same thing, it's all okay, it all takes care of itself. There is nothing you do to deal with anything. Now, it's hard to hear sometimes, I know. One, because you're suffering, and I don't mean this about you, Tanya, but just in general. One, because we suffer, and we don't like to suffer, so we instantly jump into action and try to do something and deal with things so that we suffer less. But has that ever worked for you, really? It hasn't worked for me, really. I mean, in a moment maybe, but we don't deal more, and then end suffering. Like, what ends suffering is seeing that it's all one thing, seeing that it's okay, seeing that that shadow on your wall that looks like a monster is a shadow. That's what completely obliterates suffering. Like, it's gone, it's done. There's not a thing in the world to deal with. So we want to keep looking at this, and there's room to move in this, because again, the question's talking about, I have these thoughts and this disorder and these behaviors, and that's totally okay. Like, I'm not, that is how it looks to us, but consider, like, back up and consider it bigger. And if it's all experience and it's all wonderful, it's all made of the same energy, and it all takes care of itself. We aren't it, it's not us, it's just moving through us. There's nothing to deal with in any of our experience in this bigger sense, okay? I'm not saying go sit under a tree and don't pay your bills and don't feed your children. I'm saying in a bigger sense of this suffering and this angst in terms of what we're feeling. Seeing the truth about it means there's nothing to deal with, just like the ocean doesn't deal with waves. It's all ocean and it's all okay. So the second part of her question is, can you also address resistance to stopping your compulsions and the feelings you get when initially first stopping your compulsions? So let me make something up here. So let's just say, for example, there's a compulsion to wash your hands. That's just a stereotypical, maybe common, I don't even know, compulsion someone might have. So in OCD, so let's say, you feel all anxious. That's all it is. It's just an unsettled feeling. Now, it's not anxiety that's happening through you. It's just energy. It's thought. It's the bigger power of thought. It's just experience moving through you like a wave in the ocean. And what happens is we don't like it. So it feels like anxiety and we get all caught up in it. And then quickly, and this happens, this is not necessarily a conscious, logical, thought out thing, but in an instant, our mind's trying to help us. Our little mind's trying to help us. Big mind too. It's all trying to help us. And so it's looking for a way. It's looking for some relief. I used to eat. People drink. People smoke. People wash their hands. They do whatever they do. So that's all this compulsion is. It's some thinking, it's some probably resisting whatever you're feeling, not liking it, and then it's your mind tossing out a suggestion. Hey, do this, you'll feel better. This will bring you some relief. Of course, it doesn't really bring you relief. Washing your hands can't bring you relief unless your hands are like on fire or something, but washing your hands 30 times in a compulsive kind of way does not bring relief. But we let our minds relax. Like we quit fighting because we say, oh, okay, I'm washing my hands. I'm going to give in. I'm going to, we've associated relief with this action. So that's all that's really happening. The thing we do doesn't bring us peace of mind or well-being, because we are peace of mind and well-being. It's all the anxiety that we're resisting and fighting and all of that just kind of makes us feel bad. So again, it goes back to like just letting this all be. Seeing that it's okay, seeing it, the capital S, like seeing it for yourself in a personal, meaningful to you way, that everything that moves through us is all the same. It's a different temporary form of that same one creative, loving energy that powers everything in the world. So let's say you have a compulsion, like me, to wash your hands. We'll just make this one up. So she's saying, can you address resistance to stopping your compulsion? So you want to stop it, or you wouldn't be, in a bigger sense, you want to stop it, or you wouldn't be writing this question in. So the resistance is like, I don't feel good and I need a way to feel good. And for as long as you can remember, or as long as this has been an issue for you, washing your hands has been the thing. Now, again, it's not even the thing. Washing your hands doesn't make you feel better, but your mind has paired it. My mind did it with food. People's minds do it with whatever they do it with. Okay. It's a false association. Like, when you see, as we see what we're talking about with even thinking to begin with, this feeling to begin with, that it is okay, there will be no need for a compulsion, because you'll feel what you feel. You'll know it's all one thing. It's not a problem. There's nothing that's going to fix it, because it doesn't need a fix. It isn't a problem. And there's this way of just kind of being with it. Now, I'm not saying it turns into this wonderful feeling. It is what it is. It's energy fluctuating and moving through you. But there's a way of being okay with what shows up, which kind of negates anything that feels really horrible. And it's certainly, if your mind goes to wash your hands, but you're kind of okay with what you're feeling, first of all, your mind probably wouldn't even go there in the same way. But even if it does, just habitually, no, thank you. I don't need to do that. It's just, the whole thing is going to look different and feel different and be different by you seeing your experience in a different way. So I know what you're talking about, Tanya, or kind of referring to. So she says the feelings you get when you initially first stop your compulsions. So like when my habit was starting to fade away, my mind would still go there, because our mind's just a computer. It's just a very habitual machine, and it goes in a direction, right? There's a momentum there. It's just a habitual little machine. And that can be like there's so many ways. I mean, that's just, again, it's just an experience. It's just thought moving through you, and maybe bringing some feeling moving through you. Now, we could get worried about that. Sometimes I would, and people do all the time. Why am I thinking this? Why is my mind going there again? I thought I was done. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, we can get all caught up in that, and then maybe you follow through with your compulsion and wash your hands. Or we can have that exact same thinking, the same feelings, and again, be okay with it. Know that it's just another wave on the ocean. Who cares? Big deal. It's just another wave on the ocean. It's all the same stuff. It's going to crash on the shore. We know how this goes. We've been there. Crashes on the shore, and then it turns back into ocean. So if we can see that about our experience, even when you're trying not to do it or whatever that is, or like having thoughts about the compulsion but then not acting on them, whatever happens is going to happen. That's just going to be your experience in that moment. But that's just thought too. It's all one thing. Like, that's just more of the same. It's just another wave. And you'll feel that wave, and then that wave will crash, and then you'll feel another wave, and then that wave will crash and turn back into ocean, and over and over and over until you die. Maybe after you die, I don't know. So you start to get a feel for this in a really high up way. When we're in the weeds of anything like this, what do I do with this thought? How do I deal? What about this feeling? What does this mean? What do I do? It's a mess. That's what willpower is getting in there and saying, okay, I'm feeling this, but I don't like it. I don't want it. I'm not going to give in. I'm going to think this instead. Like, it is a mess. It's why it doesn't work for people. It might work one time, maybe, once in a while. It is not a way to find freedom from suffering long term. It's not anything sustainable. But letting all that just be what it is, and you stepping back and being the container through which all of this stuff shows up. You being the ocean, and not being so concerned about whether your waves are big or little, cute and rolling or big and violent in that moment. It's all you. And it's all temporary, and it's all okay. That changes the game. That changes everything. So I want you to look there, Tanya, and everyone watching. Look there. And it's kind of hard sometimes, because your mind's like, no, I need to figure this out. I need to get in the details. I need to make distinctions and see differences and know what to do. And no, you don't, because notice how that feels. That has such a, it's like, that's your ego talking. You don't. You want to back off of that, go into that deeper place that's alive and well in every single human being when we aren't up in our heads, and you will see things differently. You can't not. You can't not. When you relax and let your mind with its rights and wrongs and good and bad and all that stuff, just let that relax. You can't not see it differently. And that's where we start to get this deep freedom from a really foundational inside out place. So I hope that hope some of this is helpful to you, and I hope even if you don't have OCD, which I know most of us don't, we have our own version. OCD is just another experience, right? It's all the same thing. So whatever we all think, feel, do, we all are human, and we have our own version of exactly what Tanya's talking about. We're all the same in that. So I'm sure there's something in here that can be helpful to anyone. Thanks so much for listening. Send your questions to AskAmy at thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I'll be back here next Monday. Have a great week.